All right, I'm going to show you how to make New York style pizza. So, what you need for New York style pizza is you need water, olive oil, instant dry yeast, salt, sugar, and flour. Okay. Now, this recipe is really simple. Actually, what the biggest thing for this recipe that makes it different is mainly you have to have bread flour, is what makes it specifically original New York style pizza, because that's how pizza started. At least that's the story about how New York pizza started. It started where bread makers would use some scrap dough, flatten it out, put some sauce and some cheese on it, maybe some meat, and then heat it up and have a quick lunch, or just have people to roll up and take for lunch. So really, it's just a quick lunch. It's like gumbo. It's like Philly cheesesteak. It's like a blue collar food in New York. And as a matter of fact, it was crazy. We were in Times Square. We went to a pizza joint. I think it was called Two Brothers. And there were guys who came down from the high rise, and they were in their suits having Coke and a slice of pizza. Mainly, people were eating cheese. Anyway, so the way we're going to start this recipe is with water. And I actually choose Aquafina because it says back here, bottled under the authority of PepsiCo Incorporated, purchased in New York, 1077. Bottled under the authority, maybe it's not made in New York, but it says New York on it. So this is the closest thing I have to New York water. Because when we went to New York, we went to Little Italy in what they claim to be the oldest or the first pizza joint in America. That's Lombardi's Pizza. And he said that their recipe is super simple. The reason why it tastes so good is because they use bread flour, New York water, salt, and sugar. That's what they said. But this recipe is a little bit different. But that's why I use the New York water. So we're going to start with that. So you start with 1 1/8 cups of water. By the way, this makes 2 10-inch pizzas. All right, so I'm going to use 1 cup. Get the wet ingredient going first. Just 1 cup, boom. And then 1/8 cup of water, This right here, the smallest actually is 1/4, so I'll just get almost halfway there. 1/8 cup, you can say some water. All right, so we got the water in there. Now we have to take a separate bowl and put all the dry stuff in. You got to incorporate it first. So we're gonna do the flour, which is 3 cups of bread flour. And then we're also going to do 1/2 teaspoon of instant dry yeast. This beautiful instant dry yeast. We're gonna use 1/2 teaspoon of that. Properly measure it. 1/2 teaspoon, 1 1/4 teaspoon salt. So that's cool. I have a 1/4 thing here. So salt, 1 teaspoon. Man, salt and sugar look exactly the same. 1 1/4 of the salt, and then sugar. We'll do 1 teaspoon of salt. Sugar. That's actually sugar. 1 1/4 teaspoon salt. 1 teaspoon sugar. All right. So we're going to mix the dry ingredients all together. The salt and the sugar and the instant dry yeast. We're gonna do it all together. Mix it up till it's fully incorporated. Fully incorporated. I think that's good. I think that's fully incorporated. Everything looks like it's all mixed together. No separation. Then what you do is you add it to the water. And then make sure that is fully incorporated. Boom. I think I'll put this right here. I can mix this right here. All right. Okay. Gotta get your hands in there, by the way. This is a handsy thing to make. Get it all coming together. Now, you're gonna add tablespoon, half tablespoon. Use a half a tablespoon of olive oil. Boom, put that in there. Half tablespoon of olive oil. Get your hands in there again. I mean, it's pizza dough. I mean, you're gonna be putting your hands on. Plus, it's cool. It feels good. There you go. Now mix it all up. Mix it all up nice and soft. All right, so next thing I do is knead this dough on an actual grease surface. Keep mixing it, mixing it, mixing it. The next thing, which I think is the fun part, is that you're going to flour your surface and begin to knead this dough for about 4 or 5 minutes. All right, so now we're going to flour our surface. So we can put this dough on here, and we're gonna knead it. Knead it for 5 minutes. This is actually my favorite part of making it. Well, no, my favorite part comes once the dough is cold curious where you toss it. Oh yeah, I'm gonna toss this dough later. Not yet. It'll be later. Knead the dough. It's good for the dough. I put, I'm trying to think how much olive oil that is. That might be about maybe a quarter cup. I didn't measure it. It's all, I didn't measure it. I've never measured it actually. I think even the ingredient says, the instructions say put some olive oil in there. So I'm gonna put some olive oil together. Kind of make sure it's in there all nicely and covered. I also like to take all the air out. Ooh, it's feeling nice and soft now. This is going to be some really good dough. Again, let your dough sit overnight, 24 hours, 48 hours. I think 3 days is a little too much. I think you can do 2.5 days at most. But of course, you can play with it. You can experiment. Actually, what some people do is they'll freeze their dough. I'm trying to think, do they cold cure and then freeze it? Well, I know people freeze their dough, so you can try that. I mean, honestly, I would experiment because you could even experiment and like make the dough the same day and use it and see what it's like. But I like to do it at minimum 24 hours. So that's the first part. We're done with the first part. We have made the dough. We're gonna put it in the refrigerator and then let it sit. All right, we're back. This is day 2 of making the New York style pizza. Actually, it could be day 2, it could be the same day, it could be 2.5 days later. Just depends on how long you let your dough cold cure. Now, there's some things you need to do immediately before you start getting this all together. First, you need to put your oven on 500 degrees. I actually let mine heat up for 30 minutes or sometimes an hour, but really you have to get your oven up to 500 degrees and get a nice core temperature. You have to preheat it to 500 for however long you feel comfortable. I learned this actually from a pizza company here in Houston. He makes New York style pizza. It's an actual company. He said, hey, I turned mine on an hour before. You know, it's a company, and he has this big old huge oven, so maybe a little harder. But for me, I've done it 30 minutes, 15 minutes, but whatever. Get your oven at 500. If it doesn't go to 500, go as high as it can, and just monitor your pizza. And actually, when you cook your pizza, it's going to be cooked for 10 minutes. Next thing I do is I make the sauce. And the sauce, I use these tomatoes, the Italian San Marzano tomatoes. They are DOP tomatoes. DOP stands for Denominazione di Origine Protetta. I don't speak Italian. I did not look it up. But for you, just look for DOP San Marzano tomatoes. The sauce also has fresh basil and has fresh oregano. And then you do salt and sugar to taste. Let me see if you can. There we go. Salt and sugar to taste is what you're going to do. So let's get ready for that. So we can go ahead and get this. All right, first, you're going to go ahead and just kind of throw the tomatoes in there. And what you do is you start off by breaking them up. You don't completely blend them first. Because what you're going to do next is you're going to add your basil and oregano. I usually put 1, 2, 3 leaves of basil in there. The oregano is a little smaller, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You're gonna want to do it to taste, okay? Then of course a little sugar, salt and sugar. It's all to taste. It's all to your preference. And that's it. That's it for the sauce. It's super quick, super easy. Doesn't take much. Now, the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna grate the cheese. I have 2 blocks. So, in essence, what this is 100% whole milk mozzarella. You know, you see people eating that New York cheese and it has that string, that stretch. It's not just because it has a lot of cheese on it, but because of the type of cheese. It has whole milk mozzarella cheese on it. And I'm actually going to grate this cheese by hand. To get it like this, I go to the grocery store and I have them do what's called a number 22 cut. And so it's just that much cheese, and I like to grate it myself. All right, I'm gonna see how good I am at grating. Wow, that was pretty easy. All right, you got your dough. I use a rolling pin. Some people don't use rolling pins. I use a rolling pin. Then you have to flour your surface, all right? It's the fun part, because that means you're getting closer and closer to eating. So put some flour on the surface, nice, clean, wipe down surface. All right. Put the dough down and you just start going. Do it with your hand. I do it with my hands first. Gotta put a little flour on the rolling pin. Okay. So it doesn't stick. Do your dough. Give it a little bit of a roll. Now that you have your dough, stretch a little bit more, give it a little toss. You see? Nice little toss. Makes it thinner, makes it right. Put your hands on it again. Give another little toss. Toss. That's about ready. All right. Give us a little bit more of a stretch. We have our dough, we have our sauce, we have our cheese, and we have our pepperoni. Time to go ahead and get this thing going. All right, everything's to taste. That's how you like it. So we do pepperoni and cheese pizza. So this is gonna be the pepperoni one. Put the sauce on there. Put it around, you see all the herbs in there, all beautiful. Much or a little sauce as you want. Now, you put the cheese on, and if you're just having a cheese pizza, you're done. But this is not going to be just a cheese pizza. This is going to be a pepperoni pizza. So you put the cheese on it. Yeah. It's nice. It's good. Again, whole milk, mozzarella cheese. I get it from the deli. I have them slice it right there in front of me. And we have some pepperoni. What happens next? It goes in the oven. This goes in the oven for 10 minutes. Put it right down here. Ooh-wee. Let it cool off. And when it's cool, I'm gonna cut it. All right, pizza's cooled off. Making the last little slice. Let's go ahead and check the cheesiness of this pizza. Whoa, yeah, that's cheesy. I'll let that cheese cool off some more. Let the pizza get right. That's the pizza. It's good. It's amazing. It's super cheesy. It's super good. But let it cool off and it's nice and solid. Yeah, let it cool off even more.